Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Caleb Landis Show. We got an awesome day for you today. We have a story that broke just after last week's episode where Scott Pressler and John Cornyn, whom Scott Pressler has just very influential in defeating in the Republican primary, kind of had a little bit of a disagreement that went public. I got that. We got some new Trump wins that we're going to talk about today, including the 250 of American freedom fight the other day, which absolutely see as a win, at least the optics of it, which then will segue nicely into the continuing problem of leftist violence that we have here in our country. And the question of whether or not it is just leftist violence anymore, or is the new woke right also part of the problem? Couple of programming notes as we get started today. Equipment and recording app has been buggy today. I think I've gotten most of it worked out, except for potentially a lag between like the audio and the visual. Like my lips moving may not exactly match the sound. If that's the case, I apologize for that. I'm doing my very best, and if my best is still not enough to keep it from bugging you, then you may just have to listen instead of listen and watch at the same time. Also, got the old early vote action shirt on today, and she is old. I believe this is one of the OG 2024 t-shirts. Yes, I helped, worked with early vote action. I was employed by early vote action during the 2024 election cycle. Very proud of that. One of the proudest things of my life that we worked together to help save the country and make Trump 2.0 a reality. For those of you who don't know, I still serve in that position. I am the Erie County coordinator for the early vote action team here in northwestern Pennsylvania. And the t-shirt itself, I don't know if you can see on the camera, but she's a little old. She's a little raggedy, maybe around the collar, maybe some stains on there. But early vote action itself continues to grow and expand in extremely exciting ways. I'm so proud to be a part of it. And I'm so proud of my boss, Scott Pressler. If you're on social media at all, you've probably heard of him by now. He is the co-founder and director, I guess, of early vote action, primarily focusing here on getting Republicans elected here in Pennsylvania. But he has expanded that in recent times to something which is absolutely brilliant, extremely cool, long overdue. Through his work, stumping for the Save America Act, Scott has, no, how do I put this? He has exposed some rhinos, so some people who are Republican in title, but are clearly not interested mm, in the priorities that we have as the American people for Republicans when we elected them, gave them the majority in the House, but particularly in the Senate. We've got some problems in the House for sure, but Senate has been the big issue recently, the big stalling point for a lot of the MAGA agenda. And the Save America Act, which would require voter ID when you go to vote and proof of citizenship when you register to vote, is extremely popular, at least in that form, and a huge priority for Donald Trump and the people who got him elected, myself and Scott Pressler included. As it became clear to Scott that some senators were not, even though they were Republicans running on this, were not going to go along with that effort to secure our elections, he began to not only expose them, but to openly oppose them as they were facing primaries to become the Republican candidate to run again this fall in the 2026 midterms. And the biggest rhino takedown that Scott has had so far is the defeat of John Cornyn by Ken Paxton. John Cornyn is a sitting senator in Texas. Ken Paxton beat him in the primary, so Paxton is going to run as our candidate this time. We've talked about this already. It expanded early last week, the disagreement between Scott and John Cornyn. And Scott had said all along that if Cornyn would do what it takes and we would get the Save America Act passed, that Scott would happily support him in his reelection. As a matter of fact, Ken Paxton said the same thing. His opponent said that if they could get the Save America Act passed, he would bow out of the race and no longer challenge John Cornyn. It did not happen. The challenge continued. Cornyn lost, and he has been a sore loser since then. We talked about that last week. But recently, Cornyn or Cornyn's social media team grabbed a hold of one of Scott's posts. Scott posted about how he had encountered Senator Cornyn in the airport, was willing to shake his hand in hopes that they could work together to move the Trump agenda forward for the rest of Senator Cornyn's term, kind of being the classy and results-oriented guy that he is, rather than the personal guy. So Cornyn or Cornyn's team continued to be the personal butthurt brats and losers that they seem apparently have to be. He reposted Scott's post discussing how the conversation did not go well and that Senator Cornyn was acting like a big baby. Cornyn reposted Scott's post online with one word comment: grifter. And I took that personally, because there are a lot of grifters in the Republican movement on social media and in elected office. Scott is not one of them. I can say for an absolute fact, being that I work with him full-time on a regular basis and have done so now full-time or part-time for more than almost 2 years. I have never once seen anything that would make Scott worthy of being called a grifter. In fact, I've seen just the opposite. The man works. The presentation that he promotes on social media is who he is. Every time I've been around him, every time I've interacted with him, incredibly hardworking, one of the few real results-oriented guys that we have in any side of the political spectrum. He's not in it for personal aggrandizement. He doesn't make any money from early vote action. Scott earns his living from X, from social media, and you can look this up for yourself. It's all publicly available. These financial records are there. He is the last person that we should be calling a grifter. He is an American hero. He is one of the few good ones that we have, and he should be the last person that we're calling a grifter. In fact, Cornyn is much more of a grifter than Scott has ever been. Cornyn is the one who gets elected and then won't do what the people have asked him to do by electing him. If that's not grifting, then I don't know what is. But Cornyn, and I got mad. If you follow my social media posts, I got pretty upset with Cornyn for doing this, which kind of bugs me because that was the point, right? He was trying to own Scott in some way. Scott continued to respond with class like he always did. And I responded with accuracy and without profanity. So I was quite proud of myself for that. But it just illustrates to me how important our continued work, whether it's an early vote action or some other place or company or just speaking online in or interacting with people in your own personal life and your own social media life and your own relationships, how important this is. Because we have a huge midterm election coming up in 2026, which is better off now than it has ever been because of some of the rhinos and people who are stalling the MAGA agenda and have lost track of what Republican and new or crossover voters, Republican voters, sent them to Washington for. This is a Republican Party that is in better shape than it was in the winter because of the primaries and because of the redistricting, right? And the Democrat Party continues to be more and more extreme and nasty in its presentation, and its policies continue to wreak more and more havoc as much as they can, being outside of power. I'll get into what I mean by that a little bit more later. But my point is, there are ways to get involved, to deal with the issues in the Republican Party, and to make sure that these horrible, violent, extremist, communist Democrats don't get power again come November. And Scott's interaction with Cornyn illustrates that, right? Because Scott beat Cornyn. Now, obviously, Scott wasn't the only influence in that election. Trump's endorsement of Ken Paxton, Cornyn's opponent, was huge. But the fact that Cornyn was so bugged, so annoyed, and so confrontational and so nasty and immature with Scott shows that Scott's work had an impact. And that is what makes Scott so special. Now, Scott is only, and Early Vote Action is only one group on the Republican landscape that you can help with, but you can help directly with Early Vote Action. I would encourage you to, if you're listening to me somewhere in northwestern Pennsylvania area, reach out to me. You can contact me via the comments on the Facebook channel that this video is on, along with Rumble and YouTube. You can reach me on X, Caleb Landis 8 on X, or Caleb Landis on Facebook. Either place, you can direct message me to get involved. There's all sorts of opportunities. There's the low intensity stuff that you can do anywhere with our app, like writing postcards to voters, sending texts to voters, to raise awareness and create momentum and reminders and encouragement for people to go and vote. We have a very cool initiative going on in Erie County Early Vote Action right now, where we are pre-filling early voting applications for Republican voters who almost never vote, but who did turn out in 2024. These are the people we won Erie County and Pennsylvania with in 2024. People who don't usually vote, but when they do vote, vote Republican, or who had never voted before, but turned out for Trump as registered Republicans. We can send pre-filled early voting applications to them so that they can vote by mail or vote early in person. Now, I am in favor of removing that system entirely. But the fact is, well, I shouldn't say entirely, removing the mass no excuse mail-in and early voting entirely. I'm okay with the old absentee system. But the fact is that this system exists. And while it exists, it is easier to vote by mail or early in person at the county courthouse. And it is also a fact that people who are less likely to vote are more likely to vote if it's easier. So here's a super easy way for them to sign up for a mail-in ballot or early voting ballot. In person, it's the same thing. And then they have more options to vote. Of course, we also need door knockers. We always need door knockers. That's a little bit more intense. I understand. That's a niche skill, right? Or maybe you're not interested in volunteering with a activist group at all. That's okay too. Talk to your friends. Talk to your family. You've heard 10, 10, and 10, right? I hear it all the time on Dan Bongino's podcast, which I highly recommend. Listen to it. 10 phone calls, 10 social media posts, 10 emails, right? 10, 10, and 10. You bring those people to the polls with you, and we win. The opportunity is there. We are improving the Republican Party, and in doing so, carrying forward a winning message for Republicans. I'm not giving up on the midterms at all. The redistricting alone has the Republicans in great position to keep the House. And if you are interested in joining me, get in touch with me. Even if you don't live in northwestern Pennsylvania, contact me and I can get you to your closest Early Vote Action representative, your closest Republican Party. Maybe there's Turning Point in your area. Who knows? But I will help you get involved. Don't be a jerk like Cornyn. Don't be a sore loser like Cornyn either. And don't be a black pillar assuming that all is already lost. This is the halfway through June. And momentum is on our side, and the opportunities to make a difference are there. Quit complaining, quit worrying, quit being a fence sitter or lazy. Get in touch with me, and we will win these midterms together and continue to keep America going on this positive track that we're on right now. Speaking of positive tracks, Trump wins. The Iran deal? Maybe. We'll see. This whole on again, off again deal has gone back and forth so many times. I understand that's part of the negotiation process, but I'm not going to celebrate it or trumpet it as a win until it actually gets signed. Because if it does get signed, it will be a big short term win. In fact, it's already a big short term win. Oil prices have plummeted since Trump said the deal was going to be announced, and gas prices are huge right now. We've got to get those down. If this deal with Iran is signed and it holds, that would be a huge long-term win. But we're going to have to play that by ear as we go. There are, however, some other wins that I want to talk about that we already know because they've already taken place. On Saturday, Trump announced via Truth Social that there was a strike in Venezuela which killed the top Tren de Aragua leader, Nino Guerrero, I believe is how you pronounce his name. Did you hear much about that? I didn't, but it was a big deal to me for two reasons. Number one, it happened in Venezuela. In fact, Trump said that the operation was, quote, coordinated closely with our friends in Venezuela. And he made the point that Venezuela is no longer a safe haven for Tren de Aragua. This is one of the huge reasons Trump did what he did in Venezuela anyway, where he literally kidnapped Maduro and his wife, who was basically a drug-running kingpin in Venezuela anyway, and who had created a, like Trump said, a safe haven for drug trafficking and gang-related stuff like that in Venezuela. So in other words, what Trump did in Venezuela was not a forever war like the, trying to keep the language down, like the betas on the woke right keeps telling us that Trump is getting us involved with all these forever wars. Well, that's what they said about Venezuela too. It wasn't a forever war. It was in and it was out and it was over and it worked. Venezuela is now cooperating with us, according to President Trump, to take out the top Tren de Aragua, something like that, leader in the country, in the world, as far as I know. The number one Tren de Aragua gangbanger is now dead. And that's the other part that makes it such a victory. He is dead. This Guerrero guy. Trump mentioned the fact that Laken Riley and Jocelyn Nungary were both victims of Tren de Aragua violence here in the United States. Those two have really stuck with him. You can tell. And he created the contrast between the previous administration, which was letting these guys in. If you don't believe me, look up the fact that a suspected Tren de Aragua member was arrested in the city of Erie a couple of weeks ago. Spread all over the country, right? Courtesy of the Biden administration. Now, not only are these guys in hiding in Venezuela and being taken off our streets by ICE, but they're being blown up in Venezuela as well. That is justice for Laken Riley, who at 22 years old suffered an attempted rape, although she fought back, and was murdered when she did. That is justice for 12-year-old Jocelyn Nungary, who 2 years ago today was raped by strangulation from two Tren de Aragua perpetrators and then murdered. Mr. Guerrero, I don't know. This Tren de Aragua kingpin, this scumbag, this demon savage, has paid for his crimes with his life, just as it should be. And it is thanks to Trump. and Trump 2.0. That's a win in my book. The Trump 250, not Trump 250, America 250, Freedom 250 UFC fight that Trump made happen at the White House earlier this week, over the weekend, was also a win. Absolutely a win. Now, I have a unique perspective on this because obviously I wasn't there. And I didn't watch it on TV either. I forget what I was watching over the weekend. I think it was Stanley Cup hockey. um, but I created my impression of it via social media, X posts entirely. Now, obviously, my algorithm is going to throw me posts that are going to be more appealing to someone of my political persuasion, right? I understand that. But the fact of the matter is that the snapshots and sound bites is another Dan Bongino line. The media buzz that the imagery, the impression that that event created is absolutely a win. It was masculine. It was powerful. It was patriotic, and it was celebratory, right, of our nation and our freedoms, and it's the 250th anniversary of both. And I guys, you've got to believe me, that normal American pride and normal American patriotism, which had become abnormal during the past Democrat administration and some Republican administrations before it, is incredibly appealing to normal, average, everyday Americans. Do not underestimate the power of this. There are so many people out there that found some affinity to the MAGA movement in stuff that was absolutely outside of politics, almost completely outside of politics. They just wanted to be left alone, to be normal Americans. They were tired of the alphabet police, as some people call them, the LGBTQ plus, etc., aggressive, and as they saw it, bizarre or even perverse cultural crusade that had been shoved down their throats. They were tired of feeling bad about who they were as a country and as the direction of our country. Well, the Freedom 250 fights over the weekend felt really good and made everybody feel good about generic, traditional Americanism. Now, obviously, there was a lot of detractors from it. The TDS people in the normal world and in media and in politics are going to hate whatever Trump does, right? We acknowledge that, and we're not trying to win those people over because those people have chosen hatred and they've chosen extremism, and as we will discuss in a minute, many of them have chosen violence. So we're not really attempting to reach out to those people. Although they are welcome, they're going to have to leave their hatred behind in order to join the rest of the country. And most of them are unwilling to do that. But the normies out there saw what was happening and liked it. That is going to be appealing to a vast majority of normal Americans. It was loud, it was big, it was powerful, it was patriotic. Sorry, that is something that America likes. The Michelle Obama is a man joke, not really a big concern to me because the people that were whining about it were okay with Biden's topless trans parades at the White House a couple of years ago. So I don't really care if we offended those people. But what I get that kind of made it a little bit more political than it needed to be, I suppose, but not a big deal one way or the other because it's really not. What was far more a big deal was the attempted terrorist attack at the Freedom 250 fight, and the continued pattern of leftist violence in America, which is now bleeding over, I fear, into the woke right in America. So there was an alleged plot that just broke today. Drone attacks were going to hit the buildings around the event, causing either a panic or a rushed evacuation. And they were actually allegedly planning, sniper nests set up over the evacuation route, or likely egress, as things started blowing up, like armed drones hitting and explosives hitting via drones hitting these buildings. That's according to Fox News. Bill Melugin, the congressional correspondent from Fox News in D.C., reported that there was an affidavit from one of the alleged plotters telling us about his motivation. Others picked up on this. I looked into it myself. I am not a journalist, but I have access to AI, and I read the affidavit myself from the DOJ website. This is accurate. This is true. There is a fellow called Michael Allen Thomas. He is one of the alleged conspirators. In fact, he admitted to being sort of the mastermind, almost trainer, man in the chair kind of person for, well, maybe not the man in the chair, maybe the mastermind is probably the best word for this whole attack, right? And he admitted to the interviewers as they arrested him, as they picked him up, executing the search warrant at his home, that his goal was the overthrow of the government. That's not unusual for terrorists, right? But why did he want to overthrow the government? Well, I have the quote for you, exactly what he said as the DOJ affidavit reported it, and see if it sounds at all familiar to you. Thomas indicated that he believes that the U.S. government is run by an elite group of individuals who sacrifice and consume infants, who also were deeply involved with Jeffrey Epstein and are now protected by Donald Trump. Thomas also places, still quoting from the affidavit, end quote. But I also read in the affidavit, and this is accurate, that Thomas was placing some of the responsibility for this corruption that he sees on, guess what? Jewish people. And blames them and Israel for the current war with Iran. No way. That can't be, right? But it is. That's like too on the nose to be true. That's why I spent so much time looking into it. It definitely appears to be, it's right there in the DOJ affidavit. This is what the guy said when he got picked up by law enforcement. And who does that sound like? This is the leftist propaganda that they have been spewing and continue to spew. All he was missing was like Nazi and fascist, right? And it is like the primary thrust. It is like the core of the new woke right. Folks, we have a huge, and have had for quite some time, a huge problem in our country where leftist influencers and political figures are saying things intentionally inflammatory, knowing that the nut jobs that believe them are mentally unstable or at least morally bankrupt, and some of whom are going to be willing to take the beliefs that they are giving them and respond in violence. We know this. How many assassination attempts have there been on President Trump already in which the people have admitted that they are motivated by the exact same propaganda that the left has been parroting? How many times does this have to happen? before we recognize that we have a problem here. And now the woke right, the Thomas Massey line is part of the motivation too, where the government is corrupted by Jewish people and the government of Israel. What is it going to take for you woke right people to realize that you are nuts? That you have, I'm sorry, I know that's a big pill to swallow, but maybe I can rephrase that a little bit more gently. You should be concerned when your talking points end up in the mouths of people who are attempting terrorism and political violence. You should stop and think very, very carefully if that starts to happen. And guess what? It has. Leftism has been talking this way for I don't know how long, and people have already died. And now the woke right, the Jews did it thing, shows up in the mouth of someone who was planning a mass casualty event at the White House. This is not okay. The woke right is not good for America. They are giving us no real solutions to their supposed concerns. They're not giving us any facts. They're not giving us any evidence to suggest what they say. They just keep saying it over and over again. Same thing that the left is doing with their now indistinguishable accusations about Trump. They're saying the same thing. And now, are they doing the same thing? Is the woke right becoming just as violent as the American left? I hope not. But it is definitely something that we need to recognize and address as we move forward here in the midterms. Because political violence is not okay. And I will push back hard against any movement that supports it, whether it be from the supposed right or the left. Folks, I appreciate you tuning in today. You can like, you can subscribe, you can follow my channels. This video is available on Rumble, Facebook, and YouTube. And I really appreciate you taking the time to listen. So hopefully I'll see you next time.